Looks like we got some logs to move. Decent size. So we rummaged through some of the fresh scrap. Came up with some things I think we're going to use. The main one being, these are a couple of lower control arm struts off of early 70s Mopar. Those would be perfect for the grabbing ends of the tongs. Got some heavy duty T-bar from a garage door opener. Not sure if we're going to use that yet. Some heavy angle and some scraps of pipe. So we're getting these strut rods torn apart. Got most of the little brackets off of them. We got those bushings off the end there. All the nuts and that stuff actually came off pretty easy, but these cups, they look like they're sort of pressed on there. I've been hammering on them and they're not really moving, so I'm gonna have to get more aggressive on that. I think what we'll end up doing is bending this thing to give it some more arc to kind of fit around the log better. I mean, this was holding the front suspension of a car together, which applied most of the force during braking. I mean, you figure a 4,000 pound car slamming on the brakes, this thing had to have quite a bit of force on it. Well, we took care of that. So we got a 3-foot diameter tree marked out on the ground here. So what we're going to do is take this pipe and sleeve over that to give it some more cross section and some more strength. Now the problem is we want to bend that, you know, to get it into a kind of an arc, you know, like the regular log tongs do. They kind of curl around so you can get down underneath the log and dig in. We're not going to be able to put that pipe over top of that after we bend it, so we're going to put a bunch of relief cuts, notches, down the one side of the pipe, slide it on there, and then we can bend this whole thing in the press in one shot. And then we can weld up all those seams after the fact. So those pieces of angle, those are going to be our pivot point and the top portions of the log tongs. We'll drill a hole right in the center, maybe down a little bit further. We'll see where we can fit that pivot point. I mean, the further down you put it, the more leverage you get on it, more clamping power, but you also get less space underneath it to grab onto the log. So we put a bunch of cuts in there, and I guess we'll find out if that's enough or not. Flatten the end down a little bit to get it to seat on there nice. And you can see it already is kind of starting to take shape. Well, we're putting the 20-ton press to the test here. It's kind of flattening the pipe a little bit more than I'd like, but can't really do a whole lot about that now. About halfway through that one. Might give it just a little bit more curve through there and then probably call it a day. So we got those bent up. Yeah, they're fairly symmetrical, but I mean, who's really counting? So we got the pivot point mapped out on the two pieces of angle iron. We went for 7 inches from the one side here. I just kind of eyeballed it on the you know, leverage ratio. But the nice thing about using this angle iron is you can always drill another hole if you screw up. And actually, I started thinking I might make these adjustable. We could put another bolt hole quite a bit further down here for handling smaller logs. It would give it a lot quicker swing to close, and you know, might be a little bit easier to handle with maybe not as much uptake in the slack when you're trying to tighten it up onto the log. Who knows? We'll see. That's not the final pivot bolt. I just punched a 5/16 hole through there, and this is just temporary. So we're going to beef that up with either a bushing that goes through with a bolt holding it, or we'll just probably just go get a cheap 3/4 inch bolt and put it through there with a nylock nut and call it a day. Now using this angle is nice because it's, you know, beefy and, you know, somewhat readily available, but it's not the most ergonomic. So we're going to start lopping off corners to, you know, try and discourage skin removal. That's a little bit better. So there it is, kind of clamped up and temporarily held together. Not looking too bad. Kind of see it close up there. So that's definitely on the large log setting. So we added some relief cuts there on the angle, just so when you drop this down onto a log, you know, a big log, it kind of sets down a little bit more flush and you know, makes it sit better. Well, we punched a new hole there, you know, another 4 inches down the line, and I mean, it looks like it sort of helped. So there it is in the small setting, and it looks like about 24 inches or so. It's probably about the biggest size you can fit on that. Now, one thing that I'm not liking so far is this sectional arm right here. You know, I was using the pipe. I thought that would kind of reinforce that center strut bar there, but when I bent it down, you know, it kind of compressed it that way, and you lost a lot of the strength that you would have as this thing's trying to bend out when you're picking up a log. So I think what I'll do is get a flat bar and set it up here, you know, height, you know, the long way that way, and run it down the back here, down to about there. Cut some notches in it along the way to kind of bend that radius, and that piece of flat bar will act like a strong back to keep this thing from bending outwards like that. So we went on a late night scrounging run through the scrap pile, and we found some looks like 1/8 inch thick flat bar by about 1 inch. I mean, not quite as heavy as I was looking for, but I mean, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So there's what we came up with. Basically just cut notches at the same spacing that we did the original pipe. Well, not exactly, but you know, close enough. We'll clamp that down and weld that up when we get to it. Not going to start welding tonight. It's too late and too many beers in for that, so it's tomorrow's project. Was able to find some remnants of chain out in the scrap pile. It's no longer DOT approved, but so there they are, tacked. Now there it is on the smaller setting, but I think that might work most of the time actually. There it is, opened up the whole way. So for the center pivot, I just grabbed the cheap grade 2 bolt. I mean, we don't have the money in this project for a grade 8. And a couple of washers, cotter pin, drilled out the bolt. If we need to move it, we can always go up to that other size there, but it's kind of a trial and error type deal. Heck, we might even ream that out and get the third size going. I'm really not liking this whole brace. I mean, it'll do for now, but I would have rather had something shorter with more thickness on it, just to keep a lower profile if you're getting in between logs. So we just welded the chain straight onto there. Was gonna bolt it, but yeah, ain't got time for that. Kind of ashamed at these welds. I mean, still kind of trying to get the hang of the stick welder, and trying to weld 1/8 inch thick bar like that with an 1/8 inch electrode it's fun. Now I made sure when I welded the chain on to both pieces there, we had an odd number of links, and I marked the center one there that you want to hook up to all the time, just so it's you know, easy thing to identify. Now as it sits on this setting, it can handle up to about a 30 inch log. If you need to go up to a 36, that's when you have to bolt it into the other set of holes there. Not going to be able to use the end of that boom pole. It's just got too much leverage out there, so Hooked up a chain about midpoint right there, and we can just put the chain sling into there. And now the next thing is to figure out how to make a quick release mechanism.